6th day of November 2021. It's the 7th day, hump day, for the Conference of Parties. Everybody's doing good today. It's a Saturday. Feels like I've been doing this for 3 weeks. Oh, that's right, we've done the prelim leading up to it for 2 weeks. We covered all the nuclear storage, like, it's so carbon free. God would be proud of it. God's jealous. So the International Atomic Energy Agency is some bizarre death cult and secret society that has spent 75 years attacking humanity in the 8 million species. We got Conference of Parties, Day 7, a lot of protests now. Not like the old days, but there's protests out there now. So, where does this climate change, this carbon-free routine, can we trace that back to something or someone? Tree huggers and eco-fascists joins hands. Global government or the world will end. An interview with the father of global warming. An interview with the father of global warming. Now, that's an interesting statement, right? The father of global warming. My God, Dana, I didn't know they had cameras back in those days. No, this is actually 2012. And he's exactly the same, and now he's a professor. And he's the exact same as this professor, who has dubious claims of the physicist behind net zero. That's messed up, right? You got the father of global warming and the father of net zero. So when was the last time you heard the words global warming or net zero? Say, it wasn't yesterday, was it? Oh, that's right, it never stops. It's like a living nightmare. Let me introduce you to other professors first before we get going here. They're a mixed lot, I tell you what. And when you think about it, there's not a lot of professors. Global warming author says barcode everybody at birth. You got carbon credits. When you run up your carbon credits, it's in with the wood chipper with you. Australian professor, global warming denier should be sentenced to death. Australian professor. Ooh, global warming's going to get you and beat you up. Bear with me. So global warming is real. Here's what it actually is, by the way. It's radioactive fallout. Invisible plumes covering the planet. That particular plume, that charmer, covering the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. Now just because the model stopped, does the plume stop? The plume go whoosh, fall down where it's to? It never stopped coming at it there. And so to kind of articulate that a little bit, think about this model from France of Fukushima radioactive fallout. And the problem with radioactive fallout is it's indiscriminate killer. It's not bigoted or racist or biased or prejudice. And it equally... So your body doesn't have a autoimmune trigger to fight with, pick a battle with radiation. Nor insects don't, birds don't, animals don't, humans don't. We're no different. So there's so much that fell on the country. That's global warming. There's pulsing energy every second, almost at the speed of light, gamma, alpha, neutrons. Beta, they're pulsing energy at almost at the speed of light, goes through walls and vehicles and everything, and you can't escape it. There's nowhere on the planet you can actually physically escape it. You can't destroy it. You can't put it in acid and boil it or burn it or incinerate it. It doesn't work. It just keeps splitting the atom, producing more and more and more, and this stuff sterilizes all the species. But they want you to believe that coal does that. Coal doesn't, and oil and gas plumes don't cover the planet, and they don't pulse energy every second. Carbon doesn't pulse energy every second forever and ever and ever, heating up the entire planet, lakes and rivers and streams. Okay, so here's another professor. Climate change skepticism is a sickness that must be treated. Well, no, climate change is real. I've done the research expeditions for 4 to 5 months on the ocean at a time, doing species counts. It's real, but it's caused by radiation, not carbon. You can't. All I'm saying is, look, you can't come up with a solution till you admit what the problem is. If you're an alcoholic and you're trying to kick Smarties or bubblegum, you're not going to kick alcohol, right? I'm just saying, you know. Climate change skepticism is a sickness that must be treated. UT professor calls for killing 90% of the world's population with Ebola. Oxford professor says genetically altering unborn babies' personalities is a moral obligation. Great. Militant environmentalists call for execution and decisive ecological warfare. Global warming alarmists call for eco-gulags to re-educate the climate deniers. Remember some of these fun headlines? Climate, before we get into it, I just want to remind you how this has been playing out for many years now. Climate funds seek UN style. Think about that word for 1 second. Climate fund seeks UN style diplomatic immunities. You can commit all kinds of crimes, but hey, we got diplomatic immunity, dog. Get out of the way, we're busy murdering everything. Should UN, a corporation no different than McDonald's or Pizza, should we start giving McDonald's, the heads of McDonald's, diplomatic immunity next? Where does this actually stop? United Nations is just a corporation that is trying to tell the entire planet what to do. That is trying to take over the sovereignty of your countries and has, for the most part. Everybody goes to them to get their marching orders for no matter what happens on the planet. It's the most strangest, bizarrest, ultimate Stockholm Syndrome scenario on the planet. It is. It's Stockholm Syndrome. Everybody's... What's next? We're all going to run to whatever McDonald's says? Oh my God, McDonald's said we should wipe our feet before we come in the house. Climate Fund seeks UN-style diplomatic immunities. Japan says... Oh, I skipped one. Disability rights. Colin Bruce, Cornwall councillor, says disabled children should be put down. Japan says let the elderly hurry up and die. Work till you're retired and then want to kill you. Time magazine pushes death agenda, remove feeding tubes from the dying elderly and gets a cash bonus. This is all the climate change rhetoric from the last number of years, yeah? It's absurd, right? Edible vaccine inventor jokes about culling the population with GMO virus because of climate change. Humans are plagues on the earth, says Attenborough. Who's down there right now is supposed to be the sweetheart of the the Conference of Parties 26. This creature right there is supposed to be the darling of it. Humans are not a plague. The nuclear industry is a plague. The military-industrial complex is a plague. Humans are not a plague. Are you a plague? Is that what you're saying? You're a plague? No, Dana, you are. They are. But you're not. We're good people. We have a right to be on the planet, same as any bird or fish or animal or anything else. Edinburgh, though, that doesn't have a right to be here. Should put that in one of those human cannon machines where you shoot the circus performers into the nets. Just don't bother with the net. Here's a commercial that ran on TV a few years back about climate change. Does anybody remember this one? This is a sweetheart. I'll adjust the volume in real time here. Hang on.
Right, kids, just before you go, there's a brilliant idea in the air that I'd like to run by you. Now, it's called 10-10. The idea is everyone starts cutting their carbon emissions by 10%, thus keeping the planet safe for everyone, eventually. Now, this hasn't got to be a huge thing, but I would love it if you and your families would think about doing something.
What sort of thing, miss?
Well, like getting your dad to insulate the loft, or taking your next holiday by train instead of flying, or buying energy-saving light bulbs.
We're thinking of using our car less. I'm going to cycle to school.
That's fantastic, Jemima. Now, no pressure at all, but it'd be great to get a sense of how many of you might do this. Just a rough percentage. That's fantastic. And those not? Philip and Tracy. That's fine, that's absolutely fine. Your own choice. Okay, class, thank you so much for today, and I will see you all tomorrow. Oh, just before you go, I just need to press this little button here. Now, everybody, please remember to read chapters 5 and 6 on volcanoes and glaciation. Except for Philip and Tracy, of course.
Right, just want to check on that 10-10 thing. Had some brilliant ideas from lots of you how the firm can cut down emissions by 10%. Just quick show of hands, everyone who wants to get involved. Great, that's nearly everybody. And yeah, just for the record, no pressure. Those who aren't quite convinced about it yet. Cool, it's no problem. Your choice. Okay, so those of you planning something here or at home should probably get working on it. Oh, gorgeous. Those of you who aren't, excellent. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Well, hello everyone. It's great to be back here at Spurs. So many happy memories for me. Anyway, tell me something. What is this 10-10 thing the club is doing?
Well, it means that we're trying to cut our carbon emissions by 10% this year, and Tottenham Hotspur Football Club was the first to sign up.
We've changed the floodlights at White Hart Lane, so they're low energy. Lots of our fans are coming to matches on buses, trains, bikes and stuff, rather than coming by car.
I see. Whatever, I wouldn't do it. It seems like distraction from football to me.
That's just fine, David. You don't have to join in, just ignore it. No pressure. Right, lads, let's do some penalties.
10-10. Hundreds of thousands of people, schools, businesses, hospitals, movie stars, knitting circles, scout troops, presidents and governments, all tackling climate change in more than 40 countries. Care to join us? No pressure.
Was that okay?
Sounded great to me. Thanks,
okay.
Gillian.
Happy to help.
So what are you thinking of doing for 10-10 yourself?
What, are you kidding me? I thought that by doing this voiceover, that was my contribution.
Right. No, absolutely. No pressure.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Jesus.
They love you so much, they do. So what you take away from that, of course, is that if you're not a player, you're fair game. Yeah? It's okay to do something naughty to you. So if you've got lots of people doing something naughty to you, that's good. It's acceptable because you don't watch your tin cans, your pop bottles, and your cardboard. You're a terrorist. You're with Al Qaeda. Eugenics movement calls for eco-dictatorship under United Nations ruled. So United Nations is like, this is so awesome. We got all these useful idiots out there pitted for us. We're just a corporation. Don't they realize it? I said, no, they're stupid, man. They don't realize it. I'm gonna start up a company, call it NN. I'm gonna have climate debates. I'm gonna invite all the world leaders and 25,000 dignitaries. And whatever we decide, you're gonna fucking do or kick the shit out of you. Here's another professor. Med school professor convicted of abuse. Harvard med school professor convicted of abusing girls. Big surprise. Harvard professor convicted of stealing $600,000 from a person. Another Harvard professor convicted of defrauding a couple. MIT professor convicted. OC professor convicted of exposing himself to multiple women. Left-wing professor convicted of raping 13-month-old baby. Former CSU East Bay professor convicted of baby sex abuse. Another early childhood professor was convicted of child porn. Who knows why he was such a fanatic he became a professor. Professor convicted in child porn case released from jail. Jewish professor convicted of making child porn. The former Elon professor convicted of child porn. Convicted former professor admits to abusing little boys. Judge rules professor convicted of sex crimes can go to Hong Kong for work. Professor convicted of poisoning his wife. Of defrauding NASA almost $1 million. Sex. This was a law professor, for God's sakes. Blackmailing the students for sex. They're insane, right? Professor convicted of first-degree murder, Kansas State University. They put out some doozies, haven't they? A Riverside professor convicted of torturing his wife. Convicted of abusing boys. A law professor punches out a 70-year-old taxi driver. So when you hear about professor, the father of global warming, and the professor that claims he's the physicist behind net zero, you might want to think twice about who these people are, because they're out of the picture. All you know is United Nations. You never even probably heard tell it to them, did you? No. Or the other ones I showed you. And they're nutty. They're just a fraction of professors convicted catalog that I've acquired over the years. It's like, what the hell, man? And there's not that many professors on the planet, but there's a lot of big percentage of them are sadistic, criminal, murdering arse, and you name it. So, if carbon is heating up the planet, let me see if I get this straight before we get into it. So, this is Fukushima 19 days later. That's the Pacific Ocean. That's the Atlantic behind me, Europe and everything else, right? This is North America, Canada. This is the planet covered in radioactive fallout. This is a global warming, pulsing energy every second. So if you're worried about coal, well, the biggest producers of pollution on the planet are container ships. Just one of them, same pollution as 50 million cars. 50 million cars. And 15 of them produces more pollution. 15 of these produces more pollution than all the cars on the planet combined. There's 96,000 of them, these big bad boys on the ocean at any given time. That's when you scale it up, there's 42 trillion people on the day. So does it make more sense that you also go after the big polluters, not just... It's okay to you got to go after the military, you got to go after this creature, you got to go after NASA in all the countries worldwide. If you want to get the actual polluters, if you just want to pretend, go down and have a little party for 13 days that started bizarrely on Halloween. All the monsters got together on Halloween. What else are you supposed to take away from that one, I wonder? Oh, why are we doing this to the children of the world? There's 27,000 children starve to death every day of dysentery, diarrhea, and pneumonia, which are all curable, by the way, for pennies each. For pennies each. But no, we're just going to go party, rock it out down in Glasgow. I'll be back in the fall. Let's not solve any problems. Let's just pretend, have a big party and pretend, right? And the problem with Fukushima, radioactive fallout, because I advocated for that for years and years, right? But Fukushima fallout kills all the species too. But it still asks the question, if we're worried, if UN is going to fix the climate, why don't they fix this first? I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be an a-hole or nothing. God forbid somebody. Help me understand the logic of this. If I watch 2 hours United Nations, it has no influence on my behavior, but a 30-second Super Bowl ad is worth $3.8 million because it'll make us run out and buy a product. Okay? Here's what a person looks like. They hurt an animal, and sure enough, they dug it out, and here was a sheep stuck in a snowbank. So, you know your government is screwed up when soldiers are beating wheelchair-bound detainees, right? And then you're going to see that when you make soldiers do stuff like that, it eventually comes back and creates a dysfunctional system. 237 Israeli soldiers committed suicide in 10 years. That's just a fraction of what they were able to confirm. Here's the system for you. They didn't contribute to the policeman's balls, so to speak. And so they didn't come and put out the fire. They went there and got their picture taken. So that's the dangers of large groups. Individually, there's zero possibility they're going to do that. But when you put them all together at the Conference of Parties 26, some strange stuff can come out. And there's some real monsters out there, trust me. There's some real life monsters out there. I'm going to show you one in a second. Now this gentleman here is going to explain in 1 minute how we got into wars, all the great wars, how they got started. It's a very subtle thing, but I think you'll get it. I put some extra footage in there to try to help articulate it. Here we roll.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
So it would be best if somebody else starts the war. So it's called a false flag. You've just seen them list a whole bunch of them. And so, like, Iran is in the news constantly, right? And so this is a think tank in Washington. And they put this up on their YouTube channel. I was watching it. I was like... they're scary and they're stupid. But I mean, you attack yourself, your community, and you blame it on some other country. And then you go to war for 10 years. And you destroy the pensions and the patents in every country. Millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, millions missing, millions of orphans. You got rid of the pensions and the patents of the country permanently. And you flatten everything in the country with depleted uranium munitions. That's this machine. That's global warming in overdrive, right? So is nuclear. So is the big ships on the ocean. There's 3 of them. That's the big 3, by the way. Not there yet. Greater cuts are still needed at the conference of parties to lower the temperature. So I'll show you, like, do you believe in geoengineering? Because there's actually geoengineering stocks out there. So when you look at that, you see the shadow on the ground? See the shadow on the ground? Like, underneath it, it doesn't look like this, but above it, it does. Underneath it, you can see the big shadows. That's actually what it looks like. Negotiations math that shows that warming will exceed dangerous thresholds unless countries promise to give the United Nations 100 billion, baby. We want it every year, too. And if you're late, we're going to charge you interest on it. This is global warming. This is a map of radiation fallout. A continuous plume continued, non-stop. Nasty. I'll show you what it looks like. But remember now, the model stops, but the plume doesn't. So it's covering all the Pacific, all of North America, all the Atlantic, all of Europe. And that's from France's model. That's only based on venting. It's not based on the actual nuclear meltdowns. And you've probably never seen the nuclear meltdowns. Well, because this is a special night tonight. Tonight is a special night. I'll show you. I'm pretty proud here tonight. Here we go. Who's we, Dana? Oh, it's me. Mr. Dana, you can call in too. Dana Durnford. 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. I just got to show you though. Brings a tear to my eye. Tonight's a big record. Tonight we got 11 people on my show. Well, 10 people on the show. 10 people on the show, and I got 481 subscribers. This is a new site because you took down my other site with 24,000 subscribers. So I started up this site, and the most I can get on my site on the best of days is 30 people. Even though I got 480 new subscribers because you took down my other site with, I still can't seem to get more than 10 people on my show. And we only been into the show, Dana. You just started half an hour ago, Dana. Why would people, it doesn't show up, right? It doesn't go out to the people? Do you understand what I'm saying? So I just had to update that because it's, the live embedding is, I have to wait till I go live before I can check it. So just quickly, I'll show you. Now, last night's video, if you scroll down, you get to sending it out to my subscribers. Where are we to here? Publish to subscription feeds is turned off, so it doesn't go out to people. And that's why I only got 12 people on my show. Right? because it doesn't go to my subscribers, because that feature is turned off because I'm a scumbag, I suppose. Well, welcome though to everybody that managed to find me. Okay, so the reactors originally, these were 190-foot buildings. That's Arnie Gunnarsson. Arnie Gunnarsson doesn't know that the reactor to the right is the real reactor. And he built the assemblies for that fuel pool to the left, but he doesn't know, or he's lying, and he's... So here's the reactors, for anybody who's not familiar. So 190-foot buildings with decades of reactor cores stored at the top of the buildings. Stored at the top of the buildings in those two fuel pools because they don't have a repository anywhere on the planet. It's a reactor, and that's reactor 3, so there's nothing left, only a little stump. The reactor and the reactor fuel pools at the top of a 190-foot building. This is decades of reactor cores. They take them out of here and they put them in the pool. They take them out of here and they put them in the pool. So millions and millions and millions of pounds. 800 tons per reactor, by the way. Chernobyl was 200 tons. It was mostly graphite. These over here are pure uranium, pure plutonium. It's significantly worse. So the fumes you see coming out of there are so lethal, just a single breath will kill you instantly. Or just being in that vicinity from the gamma shines, the X-rays, the neutrons is the lethal dose. Okay, so the faked reactor 3, obviously, and that's the reactor 4 behind me, and over there, Arnie Gunnarsson has been pumping that one. It actually looks like this, and for the fuel pool is at the very top of the building. To pretend that that actually exists is insane. That's just insane, right? All the way to the ground, number 4 to the right is completely gone. So that's 2 reactors that are completely gone. Bear with me. I'll get you down to the good stuff, to the rock and roll stuff. By the way, last year we produced the equivalent of 300 nuclear power plants in renewable energy in 12 months. Yeah? That's pretty impressive, okay? Trust me. Yeah, we're seeing some strange stuff, folks, with this industry. We see so many people pretending they're in a building that don't even exist. This was reactor 3, what's left of a 190-foot building. That's reactor 4. That's reactor 1. There was 1 million sieverts outside of that. Some of that's got to do with because it had multiple reactors alongside of it detonating. But its fuel pool detonated, right? Reactor 2 went China syndrome down into the earth, and it burnt rather continuously for several days. Then it went down into the earth. It had a big detonation. All of this after a massive tsunami. But the problem is they're perpetually trying to convince you, because that's, as I show you, the fault it is global warming. They're trying to convince you that they're in the top of that building that don't even exist. Like, why would the producers and the editors and the media executive and the owners...
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
And so this is Reactor 3, but they're pretending it looks like that. That it looks normal. And here's what both of those looked like originally. These were 190-foot buildings, 150 foot wide. So when there was 4 of them detonated, reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4. These plume models that started coming out, now the plume doesn't stop, but the model does. And you can see the dates is, hang on one second. It's April the 4th. So this is less than a month after. The one in the bottom right-hand corner is 19 days after radioactive fallout plume model. And one of the most strangest things we've seen was that they couldn't sell the sake produced in the radioactive wastelands. And so what they done was the Fukushima government went to New York and opened a sake shop with just Fukushima prefecture's rice, made from the rice. But food is banned in 55 countries at the time, in 14 prefectures, not just Fukushima. Because there's so much radiation, like it might be hard to appreciate it, but when you radiate the whole planet, imagine how bad your country's going to be, right? Canadian newspaper tries to get soil tested for radiation. Private companies and everybody else refuse to test it. They won't test the food, by the way, either. Even though they're growing it right by the nuclear waste. Right in nuclear wasteland itself. 60,000 of those bags. So the plumes that covered the planet, I got to update all of my ones after. So this is just a Pacific, for the most part, North America. But watch how, when it hits Hawaii, it splits after the first piece of the plume hits it. Notice it's still coming out. Now, it never stops coming out, but the model has to stop because they only make models very short, right? And then the plume never stops. It doesn't go away. It's a continuous plume day after day after day after day after week after month after year. It's not going away. You got to deal with it. You got to come up with solutions. You can't come up with solutions until you admit you got a problem. And you're going to have to at some point admit that you got a problem. Brother and sisters, listen to me, you got a problem. And it's not just hemorrhaging in the ocean, see? It's pounding out of the environment constantly. This global warming in overdrive is pulsing energy every second. It's pulsing energy every second. So the tanks, first off, they won't let anybody independently test it. The IAEA is not going there to test the tanks, it's going there to test the water off the coastline. Should terrify you. And they're not going to go near it. First off, if you fill the tank up with the radiation that we're talking about, you're looking at 1.4 million sieverts per tank. What that means is you can't get back on the site to build another tank. The fact that there's tanks there is proof that the tanks are not filled. First off, if you try to put this stuff through a filter, then the filter is lethal doses from a football field away. Now, I'll show you some of the documentation of what I mean by this. This is 2013. Tanks that crippled Japanese nuclear plant. Had 1,000 tanks. And this is pictures of them pretending they're inside of reactor 4. You don't want me to go back and go through that again, do you? But anyway, I showed you just a moment ago the reactors. They're pretending they're in a building that don't even exist in 2013. In 2014, they got 1,200 tanks. And in 2017, they got 900 tanks. In 2020, they got 1,000 tanks. In 21, rather, they got 1,000 tanks. So they had 1,000 tanks in 2013 and 1,000 tanks in 2021. And nobody thinks there's something weird about that. I'm just saying. The tanks were bolted together. 2 sieverts an hour or better. Now, that's not counting gamma and alpha neutrons like plutonium, uranium, americium, curium, the biggest byproduct of the radiative fuels. So we counted the tanks. There's actually only 750, by the way. Resulting destruction will take half the planet with it. Now, you're not going to see that kind of connotations for a coal plant or an oil plant breaking down or a gas plant or from carbon from these plants. Jesus, what's wrong, honey? Well, I think the coal plant is going to go down, baby. Well, why is that bad? The resulting destruction will take half the planet with it. What else has those connotations? How can people pretend that? How can people like censor me to stop people from being able to protect themselves? What kind of demonic, twisted, pathetic soul is that? That your job is to stop people like me so the world doesn't wake up and say, holy shit, we're being poisoned, let's do something and stop it. Let's try to build something so people can have a normal life. No, let's just censor Dana. You want to be a nuclear scientist when you grow up, you got to censor Dana. We won't let you. And they probably work at the men's bathhouse down in Vancouver in their spare time. Resulting destructions will take half the planet along with it. Do you think all of this is just... Now, I went out and done... This is the summer. I was out doing research, counting insects, and we're looking in particular for spiders. We'll take anything, of course. Everything's awesome. But in particular, hunting for spiders, and never found... We found 3 webs. 2 of them were over a river. And 1 of them was on 4 rocks and boulders. None in the forest whatsoever. So that's considered impossible, by the way, out in the forest. And I've done lots of research on the ocean. So that's that island anyway, up there. I've done lots of research each year. So Fukushima, they had a major tsunami, earthquake, meltdowns. Tsunami runs through these places, absurd energy. It just destroyed everything for 680 kilometers. There was no way. There was 15 reactors, had no external power, no generators. And with no generators, you melt down. But we can only confirm what we can confirm, so we talk about what we can, right? This is Fukushima nuclear plant site. There was no infrastructure left. When the water receded, there was no infrastructure functional for 680 kilometers in it. So this is lethal doses from reactor 2. It's a highly lethal mixed oxide fuel from reactor 3. As you can see, that's completely gone. So 680 kilometers of coastline looked like that. But that's after. It looked like this originally. Then it looked like this. So the radioactive plumes, though, looked like that. And there was an absurd amount of it. And so this year in January, they released 736 pictures. So what you're going to see is everything is redacted. That's the common spent fuel pool, by the way, with 10 million pounds in it. You're looking at there. That was ground level. The tsunami ran right through that. No containment, just pools. And behind it, those containers, they're for transport trucks. That gives you a scale. This is right beyond reactor 4. But in the first picture I showed you, you see reactor 3 and 4 in the bottom right hand? No, you don't, because they redacted all 736 pictures of the reactors, original pictures. They released them, but they were all redacted. The damnedest thing I've ever saw. And it was redacted because that's what it really looks like. It doesn't, it's not so fancy nice. So the whole country is radioactive. And this is just cesium. So you can do extrapolations from cesium. But all the communities down there are incredibly polluted with radiation. Despite the fact that the United Nations is out there trying to say there's no adverse health effects. No adverse health effects. That was this year's anniversary. No health effects. It came from everywhere. In fact, the anniversary video I done this year of it, was based around this theme there, this propaganda. Much more to the story than we're talking about right now. UN experts say radiation from Fukushima can't hurt a fly. Despite the fact that the air in Tokyo was 270 times more contaminated with cesium than global weapons fallout. Map shows Fukushima fallout in the US. Yeah, and that's what it looked like. Covering the whole planet within 30 days. It's still going on. High levels of radioactivity found extensively. Japan says the air 150 kilometers from Fukushima plant is as radioactive as the area is close to the meltdowns. Top cancer doctor, nuclear radiation, the most carcinogenic thing that exists. Fatal radiation levels all over the sites. Unit 2 completely liquefied. 100% liquefaction. Not partial meltdown, 100% liquefaction of the uranium core. And we've never seen this before in the history of nuclear power. So you're missing the equation if you're not familiar with this stuff. This is extraordinarily pertinent to the equation we're facing right now with climate change. TEPCO says the increase of radioactivity releases is from workers going in and out of reactor 2. This is absurd because there's zero possibility you can get close to it because, first off, reactor 1 and 3 are 100% meltdowns. It's Gamma Shine City, but this was because reactor 2 stayed in. It looks like the building looks like it's intact, right? But the reactor core burnt for several days, and there was a hole in the side of it. And then it went China syndrome with the reactor core, the fuel pools and the reactor cores down, what was left, liquefied down to the earth. But it just goes to show you how insane this whole industry is. So the fake reactor 3 to your left, they don't warn you about the plumes. And now they're trying to blame everything on coal. Coal doesn't produce. Oh, that's not the one, sorry. Radioactive plumes like this. So to me, it's hard to appreciate it, right? Without, wait for it. I'll explain to you how bad it actually is here. I have a real simple way of doing that. Takes me a second up. I'll explain to you what I mean by this. I think you'll get it. Right, you got all the plumes, endless plumes. You got another thing to think about is why are nuclear power plants surrounded by farms? They're always hemorrhaging radiation. Imagine how many people actually gets killed by that. That's definitely crimes against humanity right there. And because you use a lot of this to make pet food too, it's insidious. It's why would you build? You don't build a coal plant in farmland. You won't build an oil plant in farmland. You won't build a gas plant in farmland, but you build nuclear. It's absurd. All of the food is going to be poison. That's an actual nuclear meltdown site, Sellafield. Everything's surrounded. Every nuclear power plant you can find online is surrounded by farms, right up to the nuclear reactors if they can get them. They're actually insane, right? Okay, hang on, we'll finish this out. It's insane because 50 becquerels a kilogram is irreversible lesions to your organs. Here's a new one. They're trying to build Sizewell C down in the United Kingdom. And it's completely surrounded by farms. And all nuclear power plants need coal plants and gas and oil to run, at least 2 of them. I might never find it on this side. I have it in, just one second. There we go. 60 and older should be prepared to die at the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. 60 and older should be prepared to die. Some pretty sweet carbon climate change mitigation going on there, right? Get rid of everybody 60 and older. Like, have you ever heard of something like that before? 60 and older should prepare to die at the coal plant because it broke down, or McDonald's because it's broke down. That's it. McDonald's is down, George. Send in 60 and older. I hope they're it's just, the whole thing is. Researchers too scared to get within 100 kilometers from the meltdown. Water cannons can't spray it. Radiation from the helicopters can't spray it. Send in the homeless. High radiation forces withdrawal workers. Send in the homeless and destitute. It's time to make a geezer squad. So researchers won't go within 100 kilometers. Water cannons can't get near it. Helicopters can't get near it. The high radiation forces withdrawal workers trying to restore power. It's time to make a geezer suicide squad. People that work their whole life, right? And throw them away on a disgusting nuclear plant. TEPCO admits it's going to run out of Harvard and Yale and Stanford and Oxford and MIT nuclear scientists in about 5 years. Or TEPCO admits it'll run out of homeless in 5 years unless a way is found to reduce radiation exposure. I don't know. It's kind of. I think personally they're talking about homeless. I don't know. You be the judge. You can't get it. Ignore that one back there where researchers won't get within 100 kilometers of it, and then make your decision. Vice Governor, all of Japan must face it. Well, what we should do is just send all the protesters in Glasgow down to Fukushima. That's what the poll tomorrow night's going to be. We got a poll running tonight, folks. If you haven't voted, what's wrong with you? Come on. Should it be a crime for United Nations to target kids worldwide with carbon propaganda? Obviously, somebody voted no, so they don't understand the question. I can't please everybody, right? So the morals poll is going to be should sugar hang on. Should I end that poll and start another one? I'll do it tomorrow night. To hell with it. This is outrageous. Homeless people are being sold to companies and put to work on Fukushima radiation. Huh? When did we just use the protesters at Conference of Parties 26? They want to make change? Let them go change that for everybody. All of Eastern Japan evacuated if your coal plant was abandoned. No, wait now. All of Eastern Japan evacuated if your gas plant breaks down. No, hang on. All of Eastern Japan evacuated if your gas plant or your oil or your coal plant went down. No. If the nuclear power plant goes down, let's shoot it again. I should have knew that one. So if your nuclear power breaks down, if your coal plant breaks down, do you put out a call?
Another example, immediately after the first hydrogen explosion, TEPCO gave out an order a request to all of these labor dispatching companies, and they said, send us people who don't mind dying. At that time, it was really very much a panic situation, perhaps, but normally when you enter any area where there...
So if your coal plant breaks down, do you send in people who don't mind dying? By the way, you got to have at least 2 of these for every nuclear power plant to work. Fucking dead cold. Forbes is despicable. They're incredibly scum. They're just pro-nuclear right out of Twilight Zone stuff. But even Ford said this is outrageous. Homeless people are being sold to companies and put to work on the Fukushima nuclear radiation, aka meltdowns. So are Yale University scientists working at Fukushima? No. Temp workers are fighting to repair the crippled plant. I showed you the pictures earlier. Did they look crippled to you? UN official, the homeless are taking the work of Fukushima. It's wild, man. They end up in debt to the monsters. The mentally handicapped are working at Fukushima, not Harvard University scientists, not the varsities. Unskilled and destitute are the people that are working at the nuclear meltdowns, not Oxford University. Help Wanted ad seeks employees able to carry out a conversation, so nuclear scientists couldn't even apply. Some people are not even given any food. They got no place to go. That definitely sounds like nuclear companies working there to me. The whole story is just bizarre as it gets, isn't it? I wanted to escape, but I was afraid they were going to hurt me. Underage people employed at the nuclear meltdown, not nuclear students. The mentally disabled are the heroes, not nuclear scientists. What else is new, Dana? Hang on, I'm getting there. Some of them can't even read. Workers are tricked to being on the front lines at the plant. They kept me in a shed. They threw me away like a paper towel. Guardian on Fukushima workers, we felt like kamikaze pilots. That's gallows laugh because that's what they were. Fukushima decontamination workers threatened we were punished if we tried to resist. Seniors sought for frontline radiation cleanup in Japan. So that's how bad Fukushima is. I guess some more bad news. Here's the rest of the planet about to get pounded by radiation fallout. There's a study from Canada showing what showed up in Canada per liter. And so the same liter is going to be saturated with cesium, americium, neptunium. It's not just going to be iodine 129, but that's bad enough to get rid of all the insects in the woods. And then another study showing people were inhaling the sulfur peroxide, 360 atoms each. So were the women. But it was in the males, it was sequestered in their testicles. In California, yay. By the way, they're burning radioactive material, incinerators right across the country. Prevailing wind blows to North America, and it's just horrifying what they're doing here. So that was the end of the Pacific mass die-offs. Coal didn't cause all these mass die-offs in the last 10 years. There's one event in the last 10 years that had the ability to cause climate change on a global level because it distributed right around the world in just a month and then never stopped coming out. It never stopped coming out. It'll never stop coming out because only the homeless are there. It takes them 60 years to decommission a safe and normal reactor site. 60 to 100 years. They're going to do Fukushima in 30 years. Are you in like... As soon as you stopped watching, they dumped all the bags they picked up. They dumped it in fields in a no-go zone and started growing food in it. They're insane. They're literally insane. This is insanity. This is global warming. Carbon doesn't do that. Coal doesn't do it. And oil don't do it. And that's not carbon. That's radiation. You know, some radioactive carbon, I'm sure, because Fukushima touched and killed everything. U.S. government model of Fukushima cesium-137 particles covering the northern hemisphere. I just showed it to you a few moments ago, right there, round one. This was Noah's model of just the ocean. There was their airborne model. There's their ocean models. And all the nuclear industry had fake sites up, were pumping this down everybody's throat. There was 2,000 nuclear students in Taiwan that spent several years spamming the internet at least for an hour a day. That came out a few years ago, right? Anyway, it's Saturday. TEPCO paid for the creation of a blacklist of actors and musicians against the industry after killing most of the planet. And What do we got here? Nothing like this has ever been attempted. All of humanity to be threatened for thousands of years of Unit 4, which is that one over there. And you can see the media was faking it too. That was right there. All the universities, all the medias, all the industry, nobody opened their friggin' mouth. Not a single person in the media or worldwide has ever tweeted out and said that these people are not 190 feet up in the air on top of that building looking down on a fuel pole. Nobody. Greenpeace, I've tweeted that to Greenpeace at least 40 times. At least 40 times. So, deteriorating plant threatens mass extinction around the world. Wait for me. Deteriorating plants. So, what happened was they showed you the fake one when it was actually a real one from the same organization. So we launched research expeditions all the way to Alaska. Year after year, we went up and done species counts.
We're leaving Port Hardy.
Year after year after year at the top of Vancouver Island right there. We're heading across the open ocean right there. And so I went all over the coastline year after year after year doing species counts with my trusty sidekick, Zoe, Super Zoe. She done a face plant on every beach that she could, buddy. She never said no to a face plant, that dog. It was really something. This is a couple of miles from Alaska. There's no species on your... This is 18-foot tide exchange. There's no species. So I've done the whole coastline year after year. And you can fill the beach up with people all you want, but you're not going to find the species to the left anymore. They're now permanently gone. That's before and after pictures of the same place. And so after years and years of going up there for 4 to 5 months without coming home each time, doing species counts, then why didn't somebody call me out on it? Why? I provided GPSs at my website of all this documentation, by the way. And so all the species are gone. I went and took the pictures of the coastline over and over and over to document it with the GPS so anybody can repeat the experiment. And nobody did, of course. I was never officially challenged on this documentation. And you'll never take none of those pictures again. That's an extinction event. That's Fukushima radioactive fallout. Not just in the ocean, right? But airborne. Also covers all the oceans right away. And all your drinking water, your lakes, your rivers, your streams, your estuaries. And then that helped stop the glaciers from crystallizing because there's so much of it so continuously falling on it, right? And what happens then is the glaciers all along the coastline melted. In the first few years, we documented while we were out there looking for the species in 27,000 islands out there. It was absolutely naked. That's low, super low tide with a full moon, and I found these little baby green sea anemones. But you rarely found babies. That's what made this important because they're about the size of your thumb. You rarely find babies, right? But you were finding, out of 76 species of sea anemones out there, you were finding mostly the greens. Everything else was, there's say 5 species, but they were very hard to find. And you never found young ones only in 3 different spots. Browning's Passage, in the Haida Queen Charlotte Islands, formerly known as the Queen Charlotte Islands, rather. So we've done this year after year after year. We've done all the research on the East Coast.
We're almost to Egg Island up there.
And And you're seeing all the whales are emaciated. 6,000 in the last couple of years are just great, but there's a mortality event for fin whales and for humpback whales and beak whales. But we see distress in all the species of whales, and also we see mass mortality events. I done a video, day 2, I think it was, of this Conference of Parties series. There's 13 videos. Now, I done 2 weeks preamble to the Conference of Parties. Each day I covered the nuclear news and how they were promoting nuclear as the solution for climate change. And it was brutal. I hope I never have to do something like that again. It was just absolutely brutal. It was a war zone of propaganda. So the whole ocean was covered. The evidence is terrible, because when you look at radiation, sea spray has been shown to blow hundreds of kilometers inland. So just imagine if you didn't have the meltdowns, you didn't have all the weapons testing, you didn't have all the releases, the ongoing releases from the 440 fuel pools in reactor buildings all around the planet are still splitting the atoms. These are invisible snowstorms, each of them, but to have 440 is it's frightening that we lasted this long. And the more you put in the fuel pool, the more atoms are released every single day. We're talking trillions and trillions and trillions per fuel pool in a 24-hour period, releasing to the environment pulsing energy for billions of years. Nuclear meltdown is a constant plume covering the planet, pulsing energy at the speed of light, heating up the planet, the oceans, the rivers. We got to deal with it. It's terrible, overwhelming, I know. But if you don't know the facts, you can't come up with any solutions. So you got to come up with solutions for this. You can't keep saying, we'll get a repository. We'll get a repository. Yeah. It'll take us 20 years to find a place, though, because we're only going to put it in people's back gardens. Nobody will take it. Radioactive sea spray, it's a joke, right? And that's what it is to them. It's a big joke. They murder everything. So, like, insects 200 kilometers inland have been shown to have a greater tolerance for sulfur in their diet, because sea spray has been known to increase the pH levels of the soil at least 200 miles inland. Radiation is liberated from the ocean the exact same way. So even if everything came out of the air, was finally washed out of the air in a couple of decades, the ocean would just keep evaporating tens of thousands of miles of rain clouds over the continents each day, but it's also liberated on the coastlines when the waves are hitting it. We got to come up with solutions, okay? You got to coat the rocks with something that catches the radiation. Put down some kind of film. It's absurd. The whole story is absurd. Cesium remains dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor, pulsing energy every second, heating up the planet every second, pulsing energy. So that's right. It's sea spray, and then it's the ocean is full of it. So it should be in that order there. So the ocean is full of radiation, and it's liberated into the environments. So all the insects, birds, mammals, animals, everything within 200 kilometers of the coastline are getting annihilated. They're sterilized and then exterminated in increments over a decade or two. In fact, what we're seeing, as I showed you on the research expeditions, I was also, by the way, in the forests each day at high tides, right up into the estuaries in the little Zodiac, because they can go in like 2 inches of water. There was no birds, no spiders, never got bothered by insects except for the same species of mosquitoes each time. I never seen any, the tropical reindeer. These little reindeer was unique to the British Columbia 27,000 archipelago islands, were these little reindeers. They're full set of antlers on it, like big as a small dog, right? Say 6-9 pounds. Reindeers, and you'd be 30, 40, 50 of them, because there's these 27,000 islands. And it's a tropical rainforest there. And you would normally see them and little herds of them at low tide coming down and lick the salt off the rocks, right? And because you have a 19-foot tide exchange or bigger up there each day, you would, if they're up there, they couldn't resist the salt. They would come down and lick the salt off the rocks. And they were too small for anybody to bother hunting, you know what I mean? But try visiting 27,000 islands. Some of these islands are 50 miles long, by the way. That would take you 71 years just to visit each island for one day. And it'll take you a day to explore an island, even the small ones per se, right? There's billions and billions of rocks that are sticking out of the water at low tide on top of that. It's a very, very dangerous coastline. And we've done that for 6 years, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean. It's a very complicated thing to do, by the way. It's not just take a boat and go up and wander around. It doesn't work that way. You can get killed. 19-foot tide exchanges incredibly fast currents wash up on a rock in moments and tip your boat over in a heartbeat. Fukushima melted fuel is drifting in the ocean on the land, lacking containment, ends up in the coastline, blows into communities. People get an exceptional dose. Health harms will go on for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. That's applicable to the insects and birds and mammals and animals too. It's not just humans. That's climate change. That's global warming. New York Times, ocean life faces mass extinction, not from coal, oil, or gas, or carbon, but from radiation from Japan's Fukushima nuclear power plant's reactors meltdown. We may be on the precipice of a major extinction event. You know why they said that? Because they know these plutonium models would look like, and uranium and americium and plutonium and strontium. And there's 1,000 fission products that you want to put in that equation. But meanwhile, the protest, COP's day 7 for us, COP's the Conference of Parties 26, day 7, is well underway. Everything's good, Dana. Protesters changed themselves to protesters. 50,000 protesters prepare to march to Glasgow. And she doesn't know the difference, right? She's not going to put up an articulate fight. She's going to say, kiss my arse. All the kids are going to go, yay. Remember a few years back, they wanted to create gulags and re-educate everybody if they wouldn't go along with them, right? So now they got the soft image. You brought in the little kid who knows nothing about nothing. Right? Or she would have been all over nuclear by now if she wanted to. I got the information on this site here. It can have you up and running in no time on what the situation is. Just a single video. And she got millions of people looking at her, and all she can say is, what was the UN said? Oh yeah, coal! Stop the coal! You think coal is going to change what I just showed you? And go back and watch it again. You weren't paying attention. Stop wasting my friggin' time. But anyway, the cops are all happy. They got all these kids there. They can ogle and molest and pretend that they're heroes. So you got all these good intentioned people. All these wonderfully good intentioned people want to what? The conference is about getting rid of coal, and they're there to make sure they do it. That's the scenario. But this is not a conference. This is a corporation with a big nuclear love fest and looking for $100 billion handout each year for a country that can't stop 27,000 children from starving to death every day. From a company, rather. Abolish the rich to save the planet. Right? Save the Pacific, save the world, which is true, by the way, that one. There is no planet B, and they're counting on it, trust me. You you got everybody are brainwashing to doing what they're told is what you're seeing. But you're seeing the media really push the kids, yeah? We ask kids how they define climate change. You're asking a 4-year-old what climate change is. You decrepit piece of shit, you. You horrific scumbag journalist, you. You must be a journalist. Nobody else would even dream of going around and asking children, little children, what climate change is. Why? To get another country to give you the United Nations, these corporations, $1 billion extra a year? They're going to fix it, not you. Remember? They would give us the $100 billion, we'll fix it. How did I do? You want me to shoot it again? I can do it again. That's what they're like in front of the camera, right? Except they're not saying, give us $100 billion and we'll fix it. So we're going to need at least $100 billion. Yeah, we're going to need $100 billion each year. Oh yeah, diplomatic immunity. And we're not going to take the planes out of the skies or stop the military from menacing the entire planet. No. We'll find some useful idiots. We'll put them on a pedestal. Everybody wins, right? So you got all these good-natured, good-intentioned, wonderful souls trying to contribute. But all they're doing is pumping out the gross narrative that coal is the issue when it's actually radiation. Coal don't make plumes like this. This is a plume model from the Norwegian Institute of Air Research. It's a Xenon-133, burns a hole through your lung, and your animals, and your birds, and your children, and the insects, and everything else on this planet. And then it sequesters in the bones and starts mutating the stem cells. That sounds like a lot of fun in the pelvis every day. A school makes Pupil Pledge to Our Planet, written by an 8-year-old boy on top of that. You tell me the media's not gone in a lunatic mode? So they have a theme for each day, and all the media goes out and be vultures. A corporation is like Simon says, United Nations says do this. And then you got to repeat, United Nations says do this or you lose a point, right? I promise to do my dib to send all my money in my piggy bank to United Nations so they can fix climate change. Climate activists protest in Glasgow on COP Conference of Parties 26 Youth Day. Youth Day. Okay, you can all march now. Don't litter though. Hey, his wife was there, right? So everybody's like, I'm a celebrity. I'm at Conference of Parties 26. We're going to McDonald's next. They're going to have a conference. McDonald's is probably getting jealous. They're going to have a conference of parties. Conference of Parties 26 is an obnoxious parade of hypocrisy by the global elite. Oh! A bellyache of it. Hypocrisy and by teenagers, billionaires, royalties, corporate lobbyists, and makes a shithead mix. Another week to go. How much more of this phony righteousness are we expected to swallow? But they don't understand what the big wider is climate change, see? Because it's easy to be enthusiastic about the problem when you know what come up with a solution when you know what the problem is. There's the problem. It's radioactive fallout pulsing energy every second. Hello, is there anybody home at Conference of Parties 26? Yeah. The crack troops of the New World Order. They got 10,000 of them down there right now. They call themselves bobbies, I think, cops. Individuals are probably right in thinking that they run the world, arrive in 400 jets to give us our orders in the name of stopping a climate apocalypse. Well, it is a climate apocalypse. We kill the Pacific for sure. We went out and done the research. You can't just, when I go from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, year after year after year, It can't just be that part of the planet or the Pacific Ocean. It has to be the rest of the Pacific Ocean. And because I'm within 2 kilometers, that video of in the speedboat, 2 kilometers of Alaska border, Alaska has to be the same thing, right? Just by proxy. UK overseas territories in support of Conference of Parties 26 and marine biodiversity. What, like from Montebello Island and Maralinga in Australia? Where you waited for the winds to blow over Australia before you set off your nuclear weapons? It's a beautiful sight, eh? Wow. We, the government of United Kingdom's overseas territories, are custodians of internationally important habitats that span the globe from the Arctic to the Caribbean and the South Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. Together with the UK, we represent the world's 5th largest marine estate. Did you know that? Well, not we, it's Queen Elizabeth. And then soon is going to be Prince Charles. The Queen's like, I'm not giving up the throne. No, I'm here till the end. That's what power does to you, right? Pupils. The media, nuclear loves attacking and brainwashing the children. They're allowed to do it. It's legal. They got a written agreement with all countries to brainwash the students on nuclear. Marching through Glasgow to protest climate change. Now, this all started in 2015 at the Paris Accord. And all the media come out the next morning with climate change. Remember Al-Qaeda? Forget about it. Climate change. Yeah, they're gone loonies on us. Conference of Parties 26, this corporation known as United Nations, it's like McDonald's, except it's called UN, in Sydney stresses that 2050 is too late for climate action. Conference of Party 26, a rock star named Greta. Gonna tell you a story. They'll be writing songs about her for 1,000 years, Dana. I wouldn't doubt it at all, actually. She doesn't even know what the real issue is. She's just regurgitating the carbon and cold. You know, I might start making t-shirts that look like that. Maybe that'll help, who knows. See, that's radioactive fallout from Japan, pulsing energy every second. Carbon's not going to do it, coal's not going to do it, oil can't do it, carbon or gas is not going to do it. So the only thing left now is nuclear. And that's the plume of nuclear, because the rest of them don't make plumes like that, and neither of them only nuclear, like Fukushima in particular. This is all hot particles, pulsing energy at the speed of light for millions of years. Huh. You don't suppose they got something to do with it? Nah. That's crazy talk, Dana. Yeah, I suppose so. Maybe so. Oh, yeah. A letter to the school striker from the physicists behind net zero. We covered them last night, right? And I showed you at the beginning of the show, right? That saying, the father of net zero and the father of climate change. You don't see them very often, do you? They don't roll them out. They gave them cushy jobs. Now, go away, we'll take over from here. I've been described as the physicist behind net zero. What do you got to explain that? See, what are you hiding away since you've done it? You're like, oh crap, I started a trend. Everybody's going to kill the planet now, trying to save the planet when it's really radiation. 6 key climate pledges from week 1 in Glasgow. 6. Forest, oil, gas, they're going to stop coal, blah, 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 blah. But more nuclear. business comment. In Vertness, Chamber of Commerce Chief Executive outlines his hope for the Conference of Parties 26 environmental legacy and economic benefits. We got to get paid, baby. Conference of Parties 26, this corporation, by the way, it's just a corporation, but they're in everybody's face, so I got to call them out now for another 6 days or something. Braces for climate protest and global day of action. Yeah. Global climate action faces threat from lobbying. So the lobby group out there, particularly the nuclear lobbyist group, they got control of most of the media, and they got no worries, right? They got me censored. There's only 16 people on my show. It takes 10 years to get 16 people on my show. It's a small price to pay, Dana. I know. I agree with you. Greta Thunberg tells protests that Conference of Party 26 has been a failure. She don't even know what a win is. It's too bad, right? They didn't let her blow up because she's smart. It's just because she's young and gullible and doesn't have the courage to call him out if she does wake up, right? Won't be able to articulate it. Too young to identify the real issues. They're just going to regurgitate the propaganda that you're bombarded with 99% of the time you're looking. Why is the Conference of Parties important? 10 more vital announcements you don't want to know anything about. Microsoft billionaire Bill Gates warned 1.5 Celsius goal is difficult. I doubt we'll be able to achieve that. Well, first off, every nuclear power plant needs at least 2 external power plants dedicated to the nuclear power plant. Did I ever mention that? Conference of Party 26 strikes eye candy side deal to keep climate talks from resulting in zilch. United Nations, climate change. I got to get the nuclear proctologist, climate change, and everybody's going to give me $100 billion a year. I don't think so. Well, the archangel of death is now firmly in the industry's grip. See all the cops jumped her when she got here? And you can't go anywhere. There's people out there who might want to hurt you. You're a little girl. We got to monitor your phone all the time in case someone kidnaps you. And she's not going to speak out and say, hey, nuclear is the issue. Folks, guess what? You know, we made a mistake. It's not coal, it's nuclear. It's pulsing energy every second, heating up the planet. There's no doubt about it. I got enough evidence on my site, each video, you can take it to court and win the case if there was a case there, right, that you could utilize it for. You can go to court and bludgeon the prosecutor with the documentation I bring. I'm here to party. I'm here to get it on. I'm not here to play games. Day 7. After 2 weeks, might I add, of preamble. Then you got 6 more days to go. Then what? Then it's back to pouncing on nuclear. I'll still beat up on the UN though, regularly. The UN and their little minions are never too far from my heart. I always keep them close. IAEA is UN, right, by the way. I like to start my show off with these 2 characters. I hope the world wakes up soon. We're losing all the species. But there you go. You can build your idols to Professor Brocker. I'm rubbing my eye. Hang on there. Wallace C. Brocker. Professor Wallace and Professor Miles. The world will curse and spit every time they hear your name in the future. Miles and Wallace. I say Wallace in the future, I guarantee you, that fucker. And then his piece of shit crony, what was his name, Miles? Yeah, that bastard! That pricks brought fucking climate change. Net zero. He brought net zero. He brought net zero. And he brought climate change. My God, boy. Global warming, I'm sorry. The father of global warming. But it's not nuclear, Dana. You fearmonger. I don't know. I think I make a pretty good case right here, personally. Okay, that's it. That's all I got. Have a nice night, everybody. John 2H. John 2N, rather. Night. James, Megan. Hopefully I got it right that time. I've been practicing. You can tell, right? Rob Thompson. Good night, everybody. Starlight. Ella. Have a great night, everybody. MK. Boston. And Patrick. Good night, everyone. Have a great night. I only serve one king. Hi, Lori. Colette. Yes. Hi, Colette. Never stopped, man. I'm starting to get run down a bit, though. 7 days in a row. It's a little tough to go. Nancy Sam, but we'll keep her going. I've got an extra bit of hate on for United Nations now in the last 7 days. Learned to really hate them. Another 6 days of it won't hurt me. Warren. Good night, everyone. James Lucette. Hi, James. I poked myself in the eye just now. Robert. Good night, everybody. Kathy S. Port Angeles. John Coleman. Lori Cloudthorne. Dana, include any comments about the La Palma volcano? It's 40 days with no interruption, constant level. Do you think it is radiated coming out for the volcano? No, I don't know. I looked at that, actually. That one in particular, no. The ones close to the reactor, yes. Neil, Dennis. Just anybody extra? I didn't say. Good night to. Looks like I did. Okay, well, I'm going to watch the fights tonight. Try to switch off. Good luck on that, right? We got over 2,000 nuclear headlines to catch up on. So 7 more days. It's going to be another 500 or more. The 2,500 headlines to catch up before the end of the year. Bloody United Nations, now you pissed me off. You left me with all this extra work because of you. I got to spend 13 days curb stomping you in. I don't appreciate that at all. And you're not even going to go after the real issue, which is radioactive fallout. And I disrespect the people that are censoring me. That's a terrible thing you're doing. You're terrible people for doing that to someone like me. I'm not a bad person. You are, though. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody else. Have a great night, everyone. And for the industry and the censors out there, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Take care, folks. See everybody tomorrow night for the regular show, 10 p.m. my time. Take care now.